2021. It's 3 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order, certify the quorum. And first, I will read our statement that is at the head of every meeting during COVID-19. Welcome, Darius. As chair of the Exeter Police Stakeholders Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. On January 8th, 2021, public notice of this meeting was posted on the town website and on the bulletin board of the town offices at 10 Front Street. As provided in that public notice, the public may access the meeting online and via phone. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting and who that person is, son, daughter, spouse, etc. This is what's required under the right to know law. So I'll start with Elliot. I think you are not muted. I think you are muted, I mean. Did you unmute yourself?
Okay, I did it.
There you go.
Right, Elliot Berkowitz, Home Alone.
Matthew Carboni.
Matt Carboni's here. My wife's in the building, but she's not in the room.
Very good. Katie Adams.
Hi, my husband and my sons are in the house, but not the room.
Okay, very good. Is Harry here? Harry King? I just realized I didn't see him yet. Okay, let me continue. Emily Heath.
I'm present and I'm in the room alone.
Great, thank you. And Alexis Simpson? I see you.
I am here and I'm in the room alone, and my spouse and sons probably won't come in the room, but are in the house and may.
Very good. And Darius Thompson? I think I saw you.
Yep. I am in the barn, my office alone with Sylvie, our almost 2-year-old Silver Labrador. No one else.
Very good. And Tanisha Johnson?
I'm here in my room alone, but my 2 kids are with me, may walk past, and you may hear them.
All righty. And Molly Cowan, a select board rep?
Hey, everybody. I'm here and by myself.
And there are other, and I know the chief is here, and there are other folks we decide that we know are on board with us. As they speak, they can let us know, or if they happen to speak, they can let us know who's with them or where they are, rather than going through the whole list, as long as we know that they're out there and they're part of this. And Daryl, I see that you're here as well, Daryl Brown.
Yep, I'm here. I'm alone. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Okay, then I'll bring the meeting to order. And the first order of business, well, just 2 quick housekeeping items. Just now that we're in meeting 3, I think we're getting a lot more comfortable with the raise hand electronic function. But if anyone is having any trouble with that, just let me know, because I really want to be good about making sure that I see that you've put your hand up and then I recognize you in the order that you've put your hand up. So I'm getting better at that. And if you are not comfortable with the technical part and you want to just raise your hand, just let me know that as well, that it's too many steps or whatever. And I'll watch for that as well. I just want to, now that I've got my big Hollywood Squares screen, I can see everyone. I shouldn't miss. But when we start getting into conversations, I want to make sure that I'm diligent to that. Because what we also want to avoid is sort of having sidebar discussions with each other. So if you could just be recognized, feel free to address if it's a person, just say, I'd like to address the chief, or I'd like to address, Ms. Sermon on this question, whatever it is, or I'd like to address Select Board Rep Cowan or whatever. Don't mean to pick on anyone in particular, and then speak to the group. That way we'll be a lot more efficient about it. Does everybody make sense to everybody? Okay, awesome. And the other last housekeeping, and this is great because we've got everybody here today. If for any reason you know you will be missing a meeting, just drop an email to me so I will know in advance, just in case we don't have enough for a quorum for whatever reason. I doubt that would happen. We've got a good sized group, but we understand sometimes you can't make a meeting, and the folks that haven't made meetings have been great about letting me know. So I just wanted to make that general announcement. To email me will be the most efficient way. Any questions about that? Emily?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion, if you would consider it relevant, that we have a moment of silence for the 2 officers who were killed in the Capitol last week, given the work we are doing here today. Officer Sicknick and Officer Livengood.
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote? Elliot Berkowitz?
In favor.
Matt Carboni?
In favor.
Katie Adams?
In favor.
Emily Heath?
In favor.
Alex Simpson?
In favor.
Sorry. Darius Thompson?
In favor.
Tanisha Johnson?
In favor.
And the chair says aye. We'll please have a moment of silence for the 2 officers who passed away last Wednesday. Thank you so much for that, Emily. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we will go on to approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Did anybody have any corrections or edits to those minutes? Seeing none, I would look for a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Motion to approve the minutes is written.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Elliot?
Yes.
Matt?
Aye.
Katie?
Yes.
Emily?
Aye.
Alexis?
Aye.
Darius?
Aye.
Tanisha?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. So that was unanimous vote. Thank you very much. All right, so our goal number 1. I had asked Darius if he would not mind sharing the screen ultimately when we get to this. We can start walking through the survey. I'm hoping everyone had a good amount of time to look through all the questions, and I thought if we just kind of went through, we won't have to take nearly as much time as we did last time, but this would be our final tick and tie on these last edits, anything that we see we want to change. The good news is we have Bob Glowacki, who I reached out to since the last meeting, and he's running the meeting today, and also just for his expertise. And he graciously is in the background, but offering to answer any questions we have in terms of the formatting, in terms of the whole survey. As you may remember from our last meeting, Connor Barry had worked with him on the Communications Committee survey, and what a fabulous job they did with that. So Bob, as I said, graciously offered to answer any questions we had even today. I was going to make him an agenda item person eventually, but he's right here. So he's in the background, and we'll jump in as needed if we have questions. I know I certainly do, just in terms of formatting and just how we want this to look. But I thought if we start with just running back through those questions, we can kind of get our last look at them and any edits that we want to make or changes before we then start working on the logistics of putting it all together and getting it up on the website, and then getting folks to respond to it. Will you be able to share your screen, Darius? Excellent, thank you. He's saying yes. I kind of put him on the spot. Oh, that's this. Oh, can you put the citizen one up first? I'm sorry, the citizen survey first.
A moment.
No problem. Oh, nice picture. That's good. Here we go.
Is that good?
Looks great.
Okay.
Can everyone see the survey?
Yep.
And this was the sort of the front page of it, kind of the, and Bob, I know you're kind of out there. So if you see anything that you think we should do a little differently, or just any kind of comment that you have, please feel free to let us know. Because we're new at this, so we're not sure if we've done it exactly correctly.
Sure thing. And this is my first time seeing it. I didn't get a chance to watch the video from the last meeting about when you guys went through this. So I'll just, this is my first time seeing it. So
yeah, no, that's okay. I totally don't expect you to be that familiar with the content. It was just more if you look at the formatting as we walk through it. And again, we don't have to. The final form can come later. What we want to at least get squared away from the committee today is content. So as long as we have the content and the wording correctly, then we can start working on the other part of it. So anyone in the first question, we very good with the way we had ended up with that, where we decided was what is your connection to Exeter? And we realized we should say, please check all that apply, because in fact, somebody could live in Exeter and work in Exeter, or someone could go to school here and also be considered to be someone who lived here, but they may not. So that's why we had to check all that apply in case it's more than one. No changes to number one. I'll assume that if I don't hear from anybody or no one raises hands, let me go back to my. So I can see everybody. Okay. Oh, okay. And we had the age. We were good. I think we decided we liked having age, basically, to determine. It's just another group, another demographic that we should have. Okay. You can go to question 3. Any comments on 3? Emily?
I think instead of, so gender and sex are two different things. Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about sex, male, female makes sense. But if we're talking about gender, you'd want to say man, woman, and then probably have a space that says non-binary, as that's what the state recognizes. And then perhaps have a space that folks can fill in, and a space that says prefer not to answer. And then change female and male to woman and man.
And make it, and so it is, what is your, then the question is still, what is your gender?
Yes.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, so woman, man, non-binary. And then you may want to have a space just for people who have some other way of defining, and then another for prefer not to answer.
Okay, so we have an other and then prefer not to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Committee, Darius, I think you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
Does this have to be, is this the correct way for non-binary with the minus sign, or do?
Yeah, that's correct. You can actually, the binary doesn't have to be capitalized, just non-binary.
Okay, got it.
Is there another way you want to put other, or is other, do you think other gets us there? Is there any other way?
Unless you want to have something people can fill in.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably enough.
Yeah. Okay. We can put other, we can ask, this is one of the things we could probably ask Bob about, or it could be other, but then like a space, an actual thing they could write how they want to be.
Yeah, I'm actually putting this into a Google form as we're going through this. So if you want, I can show you what it would look like.
Oh, very good. That'll be great. Okay.
So I'm just making a text box for our notes and our record. That works?
Sure. Because
Okay.
like I said, because what will eventually happen here is Bob will turn this into the Google form for us, so that we can guide him as to how we want this. If you want where we have spaces for words and people can actually respond, which I think is really good. That's very helpful. Are we pretty good with 3 then? Has everybody had a chance to think about that one? Okay. Number 4, I'm not sure if Harry has joined us, but he reached out to me, to the chief and to me, concerned actually. He made a case where he was not pleased with the term race is where we're going. It was more, I think he felt the term should be what is your ethnicity, and or he had a very detailed email actually that he sent. I'm kind of disappointed that he's not here today because I kind of wanted him to explain it in his own words, short of me just reading his email. But he felt that it was somewhat of a racist question asking for race. I don't know how the rest of the committee necessarily feels about that. I've seen it asked both ways. I think he would be more, he would prefer ethnicity. And are there any comments from the committee on this? Emily?
I think, and I don't, as a white person, I don't want to speak over other folks here, but I think for some folks, race would actually be the preferred term. I do wonder, instead of Hispanic, if we should have Latino. Mm-hmm. And also understand that some people who identify as Latino also identify as Black or white. And so it may be worth putting, plus there are a lot of people of mixed race, of putting something saying more than one race, mm-hmm. or letting people select multiple options.
I like where you were going with the multiple mix, however that was what you were writing there.
Well, check all and apply.
One thing, if I could jump in real quick, if I may. One thing with the check all versus like multiple choice question, it's more work to get that data organized with the check all opposed to the multiple choice. Mm-hmm. It's only a little bit. I mean, you got to do some formulas basically to calculate, how it is. So, for some questions, it's definitely simpler when you're gathering the data to do that multiple choice. But I understand if you need to do that, and I can show you what those come in as on the back end later on if you want.
No, that'd be great. That'd be great. Interesting.
So there's a lot of ways to do it, and it is easier just to have the single choice as other. Or more than one race if you want to be specific. If we're really doing a survey and scientifically, you could allow them to choose which ones someone self-identifies as, and that would then be a category that you could filter out and identify for later. And as Bob said, there's more work to set it up on the way in which the question and how it's tracked. But I think if we cover the major ones and then allow someone provides other and then give them a space to put something in, that might cover both bases versus trying to come up with every single variation that, I'm, Black, African American, Latino, Native American, Asian Pacific Islander, right? And trying to categorize that, whether they selected A, B, what does that mean? So that's just my 2 cents.
One of the things I'm wondering is because to respond to Emily and also to Harry, who was in here, what if 4 said, how do you identify yourself? Or is there a different, so maybe someone can help me with the wordsmithing, because I'd like to get away from both of the words, I guess. Would that be a better goal, to get rid of race and ethnicity, and just how, that sounds awkward, but I'm trying to say, how do you identify, or how do you self-identify the way it was said a little better than I just said it? Again, I know by the answers, right? They can tell by the responses where we're going.
I would defer to people who have a different experience of race than I do on this, but I don't think I think we have to talk about race.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you ask them to follow the slide?
Tanisha has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Tanisha. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say this question is on every application, every form, everything that we do. And I think what is your ethnicity is just fine. I don't think we should overthink it and complicate it. Most of us are used to just circling Black or African American or other, or the multi-race, I think we should leave it just like this and just move forward. I don't think too many people are going to struggle or, you know what I mean, or get caught up on this with the ethnicity because it's a standard question for any poll. At least that's my opinion. So.
Appreciate that. Anyone else have any comments on 4 and how, Emily?
So we're not going to have a multiracial or more than one race? I think that's the reality for a lot of folks in our town, or not a lot, but some folks in our town.
I thought we could have I thought he started to add multi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want me to put in multi then?
Or more than one.
Or more than one. Okay, and so again, not to beat this to death, so the committee is comfortable with ethnicity, or did you want race? Again, I'm not trying to beat this. I wouldn't even really brought it up if Harry hadn't sent this email where he really was concerned about it. And it's, like I said, it's that he thought it was, to say race was somewhat racist. I'm not, so it's a little bit, and he's not here to sort of defend what he wrote to the chief. So that's why that's the only reason why I'm bringing it up. And
I just think ethnicity, race or ethnicity it's ethnicity is fine. I just think that there's a couple things I need to add in here to make certain we cover. Yeah, there it is. We're missing a couple.
But is there any harm in doing race/ethnicity? Would that does not work? That doesn't.
No, that would be good.
Yes,
that works, because I would like
to both.
I have Alexis.
They do mean different things. I think giving people the option, having both there. What is your race and ethnicity, or an ethnicity? I think have both there.
Okay.
There's a couple categories we're missing. That's why I'm adding these.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So think back up in 4 in the actual question, Darius. Maybe you want to plug in race or. Maybe that gets us there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on question 4 from anybody on the committee? I'm just scrolling through my list.
The ordering. Go
ahead, Daryl.
Should the ordering be alphabetical?
Right. I was working on that.
Okay. Thanks.
Very good. Good point. Okay.
Typically, this is not. So yeah, we could do. Yeah, it's just typically these, and then you have your other options.
Right. And again, when Bob gets into this, we're going to get all that detail down to once we get into the form as well. Because remember, he's listening into all of us.
And I could put more than one. If you want me to really do it alphabetically, I can do that. It's up to y'all. Okay.
Yeah, we can see what makes sense with that when we actually do the form, but for sure alphabetical on the ones that matter. Okay, more than one. Okay, all right.
Nope. We're in alphabetical order.
Okay.
Element LP, got it.
Okay. Alrighty. Okay, shall we move on to number 5? Okay, now that was the neighborhood.
Correct. If you live in Exeter, yep.
This was fairly straightforward, but does anyone have any comments on this one?
And for anyone that may be viewing this but needs it translated, it says neighborhood. If you live in Exeter, would you please provide the street name or neighborhood that you reside on? N. That's just kind of weird wording.
Yeah, street.
Would you please provide the street name or neighborhood where you reside?
Where you reside, right? That would be the better way. Yeah. Where you reside, yeah, that's better.
Okay.
If I could make a suggestion on that, I'm not sure if it would be possible. If there happens to be a list of every street name in Exeter, if that's a thing, that could just easily be copy and pasted in there as a drop down. So you'd click it and you'd scroll and select your street. Because I've asked similar questions to this on various surveys, and people may spell it differently or put road versus RD, and then sifting through all of that is going to be time consuming. If you want to see how many people are from this area versus this area of town, you'd have to go in and manually change all of the entries to be the same so that you can search through them to see percentages and stuff. So I'm not sure where a list of that would exist. Maybe planning has one. Because if they had one in alphabetical order, I can just cut and paste that in and can just drop it down. I've done that for surveys with economic development where we put, all the municipalities in all of New Hampshire, in there. So people can just click and drag, and it looks a lot cleaner as well.
But
on the survey and on the results.
So it's basically like a Dropbox type of thing. It's an actual.
Yeah, it's a multiple choice question, but the way it's displayed is a Dropbox, and that's something we can get into as well.
Yeah.
You can have it. There's multiple ways of things being displayed. So.
No, I think that'd be a great idea, and then planning probably does have something like that. And I can take that as an action item and look into that.
So so neighborhood, if you live in Exeter, would you please select the street name, or in this case, we're providing street names.
Right.
So we're not going to have neighborhoods, so street name where you reside. And the other part about what I like about this, if we just have a list of all the street names, we can know that 10 people on Drinkwater Road replied. That's it. We don't need to know their addresses, so it keeps it a bit anonymous. And it protects, I think it would be a good way to, because we don't need to have the specific street address where someone's putting that information in. So I think that would be a wonderful volunteer from Bob.
That's great.
Or actually, I'm joking, but I'm not being serious. Bob, thank you for the suggestions. Great.
Great.
No problem.
So would the 911 committee have this?
Yeah, E911 would probably have that because, that's kind of what I was thinking right from the get-go. Because they have all of that. So, like I said, I'll be happy to.
Ian.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, I'm sorry.
So I know the planning board in the past has taken chunks of neighborhoods with a bunch of streets. So multiple neighborhoods, the ones west of downtown, off of Hampton Road, the ones downtown, the ones, I forget how they pocketed it out. I'm going off the old master plan. I don't know if they did that for the new master plan. It would whittle it down to, I want to remember, I think there were 7 residential neighborhoods and maybe 3 commercial. So that's another option if you want to have it in bigger chunks as opposed to smaller, streets shotgun blasted across town. I'm not saying I have a preference, but I'm saying that planning board does have it narrowed down, and in each section they have what neighborhoods are part of that neighborhood.
The only note on that, if I could again jump in, sorry, I keep butting in. Hopefully it's okay. Is you'd probably want to define what those areas are, because one person may be like, I live in West Exeter. But that's their neighbor may say they live in downtown. So you'd have to have some sort of map, which you can have pictures in the survey. They don't look really great, but you could have one above that says, this is a map of where it is. But even then, it'd be more like where do they identify as living? Because everyone has their own thing where a street name is really concrete.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you're receiving the data on the other end, the street names, whoever's collating it could collate these particular streets from this part of town, this particular group of streets from that part of town. But yeah, I mean, you want to be able to get as much data as possible, but you want to be able to understand it too, because I don't know all the streets in town. I'm sure the cops do, but I don't. But whatever's easier for you to download, I guess.
So
E911 will make it easier if every street in town is represented.
So in the interest of time and keeping this relatively simple, I feel that if you give the survey respondents the easiest way to identify what it is, we standardize that, and what is the street name that you live on, and they pick that street, that's it. And then on the back end, if we wanted to look at, well, these neighborhoods, we consider this to be West Exeter, these to be East Exeter, this to be downtown, this is commercial district, whatever, that we can do that there. It makes it a lot easier for the survey respondent to actually not to worry about that. They just pick the street they live on. Great.
How about schools and where they work? Because doing the same survey.
We could be doing the same thing when we get to that question. I think that, but I just want to, we could wrap number 5 up if we were good on neighborhood. And that's a good suggestion for the schools, that we have a pick list of schools maybe. So.
Right, because remember, number 5 is if you live in Exeter. So those folks who work here, we'll get to them in a different way. But I think the street name is great, because then we can create the neighborhoods out of those streets, because we'll be able to figure out where they are. Well, this is great discussion. I appreciate everybody's input. This is what we need. So we're pretty good with 5 then, for now.
I see a nod, thumbs up.
Everybody's nodding. Okay, no one's okay. Moving on to 6.
Have you had contact with the Exeter Police Department since January 2016? And these are answers are option no. Yes, I've called the Exeter Police to report a crime or request a service. I've gone to the police station to request a service. Yes, I've been stopped by the Exeter Police while driving in Exeter. Yes, I've had contact with Exeter Police at a community event. Yes, I've been arrested or involved in an investigation in some form or another. Others specify.
Check all that apply.
So the way this is looked is a single select, or are they able to, if they say no, it's going to be that. If yes, then they have the options to pick one of these other ones here. And yes, they have an option to say other. So options B through G are all basically replying yes, or G, you're giving them the opportunity. Says, no, I haven't been arrested, involved, or stopped while driving, but I was stopped while walking, or something to that effect. So they have an option to fill in whatever it is. I don't see any other issues relative to this.
I think Bob might have a question. Bob, and then Emily.
Just to throw out an alternative, you could do a yes or no question there. And then the second is question 7 would be if yes, then you would list those options, and you could do a check all that apply. It'd be pretty easy to do that. And then you'd get like the numbers of how many people for each thing, even if it's, multiple things for one person. So
I agree with
just
that.
Another option of how to approach that.
Emily?
I'm not sure how to phrase this, but I know that Chief Bullen's worked a lot on community policing. And so, we just have officers around town more often that people might interact with on the street or something, where it's not a community event, but it's just kind of interacting with an officer. I'm not sure how to phrase that, though.
Mm-hmm.
In the community?
At a community event or in the community, maybe.
So that goes back to what Bob, if maybe Bob can expand on that, if we made that a separate, if it's yes, no, then in 7, could we somehow get to what Emily's talking about, that it's more of a random, more casual meeting, or that's just another option?
Yeah, you could have, I've had a casual conversation, or I don't know how you'd want to phrase that. I guess that'd be up to you, but you could put that with these other options there as well. And I would try to, and we can obviously go through this in more detail, is make everything as less wordy as possible, just for people who are reading it. But we can trim stuff up to same content, but make stuff shorter. Like all the, and that separating the questions also helps that, because there you go. You just got rid of, 7 words right there. So.
Right. You could be, we're saying I've gone, I've been, we could definitely get rid of all of that. It could just be yeah, I see what you mean. We could make it a little more crisp.
And separating the questions also gets you that question 6 would then be, what's the yes, no percentage of contact in general. And then the second question is more in detail.
Oh, that's good, because that's getting us data point. We have to remember we are trying to get some level of data point. So you're right. A clear yes, no helps. Then the follow on with what is in that yes or what is in that no. That's great. I think that's great, Bob. I mean, this is the kind of sort of analysis I think we need, because speaking for myself, not great at that kind of thing. But when you say it, it makes so much sense. So I think the committee appreciates your help. I know I do. Okay, so does that make sense what Bob said? Does everybody understand the idea of having a yes, no, and then number 7 as the follow-up? I think I'm good. Alexis?
Yes,
I think brevity is important.
Right.
I think if you get too wordy, you're going to lose people.
Right.
I was going to ask a process question, because I'm realizing it's 3:35 already. And I was just wondering if I'm jotting down some of these corrections in my notes, and I wonder if we could make some of them after the meeting, and it might go a little bit faster.
Right.
Than trying to make the changes right here. Right.
In terms of the minutes, right. And don't feel like you have to put all of those into the minutes. You can say we spent time going through this form. But yeah, and Doris, I see what you're saying, Alexis, that we don't have to be actually making them on the fly. We know what we're saying, so we can move to the next one. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, because we have Bob in the background who's kind of doing the same type of thing. I appreciate that. Okay. I think we've got the gist of what's going on with 6 and 7. So why don't we move on to 8? Because it's mainly the content of these. And as I say, we can wordsmith and make them more crisp and brief, as long as we've got the content down. And covering all the data that we wanted to. That's the goal of this.
And so just to wrap this up, question 6 have you been contacted by the 16, January 2016? No. Then you move to the next question. If yes, select any of the following, other specify. And then 7, please describe how you were treated or how you felt after the contact. So we're up to, if we make this question 6 should be question 6, but if you make it 7, then we're up to 15 questions, just keeping that in mind. That's all.
Yep.
Having it this way where it's an option, yes, no, just another way to look at it, but we'll take any guidance or recommendations from Bob, if there's any after this, to be considered so.
Very good.
All right.
Okay.
Any questions on 7? Sorry.
No, that's good.
Please describe how you were treated or how you felt after the contact. It's an open text box for anyone to enter their answer in. All right, I see a thumbs up.
Thumbs up, yeah.
Okay.
Very good. All right, number 8.
Number 8, are you satisfied with the job the Exeter Police Department currently does? If no, here's why. If yes, here's why.
And there again, I wonder if Bob would say that should be yes, no, and why. But that's
if you want it, you could have that just as a text question, or you could have that as "Are you satisfied? Yes or no." Then question 9 would be why, and it's a text answer. But there isn't an option for having combined multiple choice and fill in the blank. That's not an option.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was asking about. Because remember, we can vote on the content of this today, and then between now and the next meeting, I'm not putting Bob on the spot, but we meet every other week. I bet he could put something together that we could look at in between. And even though we can vote on what the content is, how it absolutely looks in the end can be something we look at. And we can decide. But the main thing is that we get the questions the way we want them here and how they're formatted. And that can be, we can do that next.
Anne, sorry, I don't know how to.
Sorry, go ahead, Katie.
I don't know how to raise my hand on with the screen sharing on.
That's okay.
I just wanted to just say that I think that it will be valuable to be able to say 60% of respondents said yes, they have a positive view. So if that means, to me, if that means we need to end up having more questions, so we have room for people's just yes or no answers and also their responses, that's worth it. And the same goes for, have you had interaction with a police officer since January 2016? I think it will be useful for us to be able to say 25% said no. That will be able to pull out those answers as well as then comb through the comments. To me, it's worth it for a longer survey so we can have real numbers.
I would agree. I'm getting a thumbs up from Alexis. Yeah, because you're right. It seems like it's extra questions, but they're quick. It's yes, no, and then on to what the detail was. So I would agree with you there. Okay.
So if there are ways to combine the information, so 6 is a yes or no, but there's additional detail that can be there as well. It's still related to question 6. You can still have your percentages, but you have this text box that could be related to question 6, whatever else is there, or you can make another question. Either way, it doesn't doesn't matter.
Does that work in Google Form, Bob? This is a Bob question.
There may be a way. I would just do it as 2 separate questions. Also, I don't know if you guys have talked about which questions are required and which ones are not. In all the surveys I've done, any text question has been optional. So they could just go down and boom, 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 all the multiple choices and leave everything else blank. Or you could decide, no, I want you to say something. And there's no word requirement. So they could just type a bunch of, letters in there or one word. So it's up to you guys on what you want to make required, and also like how many pages do you want this to be? Because you can have it, sections and not have it all one long scroll. There's a lot of different ways to present it.
And one other thing to keep in mind is this as well. We need to make sure that this is accessible to anybody, and that goes back to the form being paper. That it's accessible, it's 508 compliant, that we have all text behind it and all the other good stuff as well. So I'm sure you're familiar with that, Bob, as well. Okay.
And I thought, and someone else can remind me that I can't remember if we ever decided if we had required questions or not. I thought we didn't necessarily have any that were required, but I could be wrong. And we can come back to that if someone remembers, because I remember we had that discussion at one point.
I think whatever they want to answer is what we decided.
Yeah, right. I think we didn't make anything required. I think you're right, Matt. Okay. So are we up to 8?
Yes, 8.
Okay. Overall, are you satisfied with the job the Exeter Police Department currently does? And again, we're back to the no, yes, no. Okay.
Right. Whether it's yes, no, and then, another question will describe how would you rate, or whatever they want to do is a text box, or if it needs to be another question. I don't think anyone has an issue asking the question. Does anyone on the committee have an issue with providing a text box being another question or part of this? However it works, whatever the recommendation from Bob or we get.
Alexis?
I'm sorry to speak again. I think we had the text box that is the question why, I think.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Another way to think about it too, if you're concerned about the actual question numbers, in Google Forms there are no numbers on questions, so I have to manually put a number in anyways. So it'd be like 1 question, and then the thing underneath question 1 is not automatically question 2. It's just another box. So it has the same effect, but me on the tech side of things, it's another bubble of information. It's not the same one. So that's how, the difference of how I'm thinking about it versus what it looks like to people, I guess.
It's a separate field. Okay.
So to Darius's original point, we can keep the questions to 15, even though Bob is making 17 or 18 entries.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right?
Well done.
for our purposes, 8, and these things are related. So if it's another question, it doesn't matter. Just trying to finalize what they are, and we're good that they need to be. That's just trying to keep moving forward.
Okay, we're on to number 9 then.
How would you rate the Exeter police presence in the community? Question mark. This looks to me like it would be a pick list, if I'm thinking of it this way. So you have 9. So we have too much, too little, just right. Do we want any other options than that?
I was going to say, Bob, do you have any other way we would do that? Is that how?
That looks fine to me. If it was me doing it, I would add in, after a lot of these questions, I would add in, if you wanted, additional information there. Depends on if you want to sift through that, like related to that question. Because I'm sure maybe you'll have at the end of your survey any additional comments. But at least the way I think people approach it, if you have that option right after a question, they will give you information about that question. When they get to the end, they're just going to summarize everything. So if you wanted that additional information after a certain question, we just add that, optional text thing underneath it.
I think that's a great idea myself. And human nature, Alexis agrees too. And you're right. Human nature is you're going to respond to that question there. When you get to the bottom, you'll forget about everything else. So yeah, you could almost have that on anything that isn't just yes or no. Because the idea is I think we want as much information as we can get from people on this. So yeah, that's a great idea, Bob. And this is why you're the subject matter expert on this. You've seen a few of these.
I don't know about that, but I do my best.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's very helpful.
You do a good job at it, sir.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea for 9. How about 10? Now, this one, we could certainly probably use your help on this one, Bob, because we have a lot of services that we wanted to let people know were there because we think people don't know many of the services that the police department offers this town. Again, Doris did a great job making this big box, and I'm sure there's a way you can do this in Google form to make it so that it's easier on the eye ultimately, but getting a lot of information out there. So folks, we kind of want to overwhelm them in a good way to say, look, we have all these services. Did you even know they existed?
Yeah, I think there's a way to do that. I'm guessing the only addition I would have is maybe either pick a 1 to 3 or a 1 to 5 scale for each of those things on like a unaware, very familiar, somewhat whatever you want to name those 3 or 5 things. And that's what it's called in a Google form is a multiple choice grid. So you basically I put all of these in a row and then I put aware, somewhat aware, familiar, very familiar in the columns. And then that I can show you how it's displayed as well at some other point. But
okay.
That way it's for each of those things. But there are a lot listed there. So I don't know if each of those box is that one thing or after each comma, that's a whole... No. What I would approach that actually, now that I'm looking at it, is community outreach would be one question, traffic enforcement, and because all of that in one question would be really hard to. The question would be 6 pages long itself. So,
I think the chief was.
Chief, I want to speak to this one. Yeah.
He was itemizing everything under the bigger umbrella. So community outreach, traffic enforcement, crime prevention, but each one of those breaks down to those individual things. There's multiple programs put on by the PD that fit.
Yeah. So if you want to gauge the categories, you could do that in one question, or you could, if you wanted to gauge the category as a question and then you break down the programs, that would be, you need to do a question for each, community outreach, traffic enforcement, crime prevention. Each of those would be a separate question if you want to gauge all of the individual things that are listed under there.
What does the committee think about what Bob just said? Anybody have any comments on that? Matt?
Well, you get the why under there. So people got to explain oh, I really like this or I really don't like that. And then he'll get an idea of what marketing or awareness is by what Darius is doing right now. But more importantly is the why. Which ones are people really liking and craving and which ones they don't like at all.
Or they've never heard of.
But the why will tell you what's inside their mind. That's why I kind of like these narratives at the end of each question.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, yes, Katie. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Go ahead. Thank you.
I was just going to ask, I wonder how important it is to get the gradient of familiarity versus just like a large checklist where you check each service that you are aware of. Because I'm just not sure, and I'm happy to be argued down, whether we're more interested in gradation of familiarity or simply you've heard of it, you know it exists or not. In which case we might be able to just do like a big grid and it says, and you just check each service that you are aware of offered by the Exeter Police Department. And then we would be able to just have kind of raw data. Yes, I'm aware of this. No, I'm not aware of this, rather than have to then break down into each of the categories, as Bob was saying, and grade familiarity. Because it's also hard to say, like, how familiar am I with the website? Like, I've been to it. I don't know how to really rate it. It just might be simpler to check.
Bob, any comments on that, Bob, in terms of just...
Not really. I think it's up to you guys. What are you looking to get out of this question? Like, do people know about the program? Are they using it? Are they, I'm not exactly sure, where as it's written, are you familiar with aware? That could just be, 3 options. I'm not familiar with it. I'm aware of it. Just 2 options for each of those things. But it's like, do you want to gauge community outreach together as a service category, or do you want to compare coffee with a cup with National Night Out? Because if you want to compare those 2 separately, you'd probably have to ask those in a question.
Is that where you're going, Katie? I think you were more on trying to determine if the people even know the program exists. Yes, no, or how useful.
Yeah. Are you check of the box for each of the services provided by the Exeter Police Department with which you are aware?
Yeah. I think that's a good question. I mean, it's almost like we're doing 2 different things, but I think that's really where you need to start, is do we even know what it is? Darius and then Matt.
So 2 things. One, just for sake of discussion, we were looking at what are the major categories of, what are the groups of services that the police department, are you aware that they do community outreach? Are you aware that they do traffic enforcement? Are you aware that there's crime prevention, what communication are you aware of, or mental health or school resource officers, that part? That was the categories. The second section here, these were the examples of the things that they do. Coffee with a Cop, National Night Out, those are all community outreach programs. Traffic enforcement, paroling, so on and so forth, that's traffic enforcement. So the police department provided this information as examples, but and I think by offering the opportunity to ask, are you familiar with community outreach that they provide? If you're familiar with any of these, okay, great, you would select one. All that means that there's indication that they're familiar with some of the community outreach that they're doing. But if we want to get specific, then we can go into all the different things that they do. I think that we might be better looking at, are they aware of these things in respect to mental health? Are they aware of the things they're doing for school resource, or that part? So that's kind of where I thought we were going, but if we need to go somewhere else, that's fine too.
Matt?
I agree with everything Darius just said, and really they are just examples. So if somebody's reading this and says, well, what do they mean by crime prevention? The chiefs provided, well, these are the elements of crime prevention that we do in town. Aware, unaware, gives them an idea, like it's just temperature. But if they're really hot topics, good or bad, by having the comment section at the end, people got to write in what they really like or what they really don't like. And that's helpful too. But to measure the metric on every one of these individuals, I think that type of minutia may prevent people from, they may just log off and not continue on. If it's too broad, The categories at the top are really what the chief wants to know about.
That's clearer, even just that putting, for example.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the way this would look is there'd be a question and there'd be a long paragraph with that. Instead of, there's no way to do a chart like this. It would be a long paragraph that would have this, or you could maybe have a picture of, with the question that I'm not exactly sure what they'd be able to read all of this. It'd be so small. So it would be question, super long paragraph with, for example, community outreach, for example, traffic enforcement, for example, and then, then it would be that grid where it would say, aware, unaware, or whatever you want to phrase it for each of those things they can check. But it would not look like what is on the page now.
Okay. And that's important, the whole format of this. I'll go to Alexis next.
Yeah, I'm not sure people would read that for this far down in the survey. This might be where Katie's suggestion could save us, because we could have a sort of one of those fill in the dot thing that said community outreach and then had all these things in parentheses, coffee with a cop, all of that in parentheses afterwards. And you could just check the dot in front of the ones that you were already aware of.
Does it do that, Bob? Can we do that?
My thinking is it probably wouldn't look very nice, because when it does that multiple choice grid, I was gonna try and do it here just to see what it would look like, but there's like limited space on there to make, because then it'd be like text bubble with like each of the things atop. But if you're having like parentheses and you list them all, I'm not exactly sure how it would look, so I'd have to look into that more.
I think you see what we're driving at, because I agree with Alexis and I agree with Katie that again, we're trying to gauge a temperature, and we also don't want to lose everybody when we get to this question where they just give up on the whole thing because they see all these words. So maybe that's something we can. Again, we've kind of put you on the spot, Bob. I don't expect you to do all this, right here and now. But this is what's going to help us with this whole survey, is because we do want people to be encouraged to take it all the way to the end. So maybe this is something that you can work on for us, and we'll just have to come back. I mean, I think we're making big progress. So we'll just, you kind of know what we're looking for. So maybe you can give us some options.
Yeah. I mean, I have it sort of open too, if you want me to jump in with my share screen to show you what it would look like.
Sure.
I'd love to see that. If everyone else want to take a quick look. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead, please.
Do you want to?
Yep.
There you go.
This is what it looks like for me on like the back end. So, excuse the random letters here. I was just trying to see what it would look like. So this would be, the different categories. I don't know what you guys have there. Don't have it in front of me. But if I do the preview, this is what some of the questions look like. But then this is what that would look like. So, you'd have something like this.
Okay. I
just typed a bunch of random letters in there. So, you could have community and you could have it listed. It doesn't actually look that bad. And then, aware, you could phrase it differently. I don't know what you'd want, but you'd have, yes, no, or familiar, unfamiliar, or you could add additional columns, but it would look like this. But once you add in all I think 6 or 7 of those categories and the examples, it would probably be pretty lengthy. But this way, they don't actually have to read through all the parentheses. They could breeze through it if they wanted. They were unsure, but I think it could work.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't look bad to me. And also, I mean, worst case scenario, they skip it. Best case, they read through it and learn about some services they didn't know about before.
Right. No, I think that looks good. Harry, there's Harry. Okay, which brings us to, then we had sort of 10 A and B, which of the services were most important, and then which would sort of tie into that one, as well as how do you think the department can improve in providing those services? So it's almost like it was a 3-part question. Do you want to put your screen back up there, Darren?
Yes, you'll be impressed when I show you what I'm doing. So basically, I think visually everybody's having an issue with looking at this. So this is kind of what I'll take out the horizontal version, and that looks a little better, right? So
looks great.
Yeah, that's good.
So this would be basically community outreach. Here's the example, and then they select which one they are. Right. So we're giving them the categories, and whatever they select, it's whatever. It's a radio button. Does that make sense? Some of what you were thinking, Bob?
Yeah.
Although there wouldn't be, I have a line there just to kind of segment, So
Okay.
I think that's a little easier.
Oh, Chief, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I've been wondering. I've been hoping you were still out there. What do you think?
Unaware and aware and familiar, very familiar, kind of seem to be the same thing. What if we leave unaware and aware, and then instead of familiar, we put important or not important? That might gauge a little bit as to, how they feel about that particular.
I think, isn't that what the next question is, though?
Yeah, the next question, looks like they're gonna pick one, the most important to them. This way, if there's multiple that they feel are not that important, we'll get that. It's up to you folks.
Right, but I think it's not bad to have a scale like important. You're right, familiar and very familiar might be a little loose, more important. Because it'll be interesting if they're even aware, the unaware, aware.
And so and if I understand correctly, what you're saying for this one would be delete columns. Okay. So it would be basically you're looking for them to say which one are important and why. So they would select one and then why. Is that?
You want important as one of the categories, correct? And then.
Or it can be this way as well. I mean, either way.
Matt,
I think the chief was asking to add the two columns to the right of unaware, aware, important, and what was the other one, Chief? Not important?
Sure, whatever would be easier for Bob to do. If it makes a second question, then, whatever is easier for the flow of the survey.
Actually, I like what Darius is doing. He's just putting it down with the why.
Yeah, you could have it all in one, and then it would, instead of being a multiple choice grid, it would be a checkbox grid, the technical terms there. But you'd be able, with the checkbox grid, you could click unaware and aware at the same time. So it's either, you can check everything or nothing, or you can only check one of each column or row. So I guess it's somewhat beneficial to have two questions like he's having it. One is up there and one's down there. And, it's up to you guys if you just want to have two options or three options or five. Usually, it's on a scale because that's how these questions are designed. So it's, three, a medium, a high priority, a low priority, something like that. But it's up to you guys on what you guys would want to phrase it as. I will say I'll have to do some research on how to make sense of the data that comes in off of these, because it's one of the question types in Google Forms that I'm not very familiar with, but I know it can be done, or else they wouldn't have it in there. So.
And you can feel free to guide us as to what the categories are to get us to the same place. If there's wording that we can use that gets us to the same end, we can certainly present that to the committee and see what they think. If we're using the wrong words to get to what we're trying to do here. Okay, so we're almost down. We're down to 11, which I think was the community policing.
Yep. So let me get this real quick. I just want to put this in here so I don't lose my train of thought. Why? Okay. And does this make sense to everybody?
About what's important and why?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I think we'll have to see how that looks ultimately.
Right. So this is 10. That's part of 10. Whatever it is, it's a question. which of the above police services, which of the, and this would be different. Okay. Just cleaning some stuff up here. Okay.
Okay.
And I got looks like I got two more social, so I'll get these in there. All right, there's that and that. And we will bump this down a little further just because. Okay. And 11, or whatever the question, whatever it turns out to be. In what ways do you believe the department can improve in providing these services? These look like a couple questions. Are there others that are not currently offered that you'd like to see? If yes, please list them. So these are two questions together. And then we have community policing, which I think is it's
an open-ended one.
Right. In what ways do you believe the department can improve in providing these services? That is an open text box. And we'll just do that again. Whoops, wrong one. And are there others that are not currently offered you would like to see? Are there other programs?
Other programs. Yeah, we should be more specific. Yeah.
Services.
Other services, yeah.
Not currently offered that you would like to see. And it's a Y text box if we want to know whatever they want to say. Right? And this open text box.
Anyone have any comments on that? Nope. Everyone looking good? Okay. Not seeing any hands raised.
All right, and then we have community policing. This is question 11. What comes to mind when you think about community policing? So, and then the other part B or A of that is specific to Exeter.
All right.
So, do we want to ask two questions here? Or do we want to keep it together specific to Exeter?
Alexis? I think you're unmute yourself. Yeah.
I don't think we need to ask two questions there. That's my opinion. I'm happy to be disagreed.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah. We could just leave it right there.
Okay.
And then 12 was?
In your own words, how can the Exeter Police Department make you feel safer in the community?
Okay, anything there? Everybody good with that one? I think we're all good with that, yeah.
Okay. Overall, how serious, prevalent do you believe the following problems, issues are in Exeter, New Hampshire? And we have a list of hate crimes, homelessness, drug abuse, mental health, drunk driving, internet harassment, scams, domestic violence, abuse, sexual assault, school safety, unsafe driving, public intoxication, disorderly conduct, vandalism, other described, and that's just an open text box.
Anne?
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Katie. Sorry.
And forgive me if you guys went over this last week. I wasn't able to attend, but I got tripped up on this because to me, serious and prevalent really mean different things. So, vandalism might not be serious to someone answering the survey, but it might be very prevalent. And I would have a hard time answering this question in terms of if even one hate crime would be very serious, is it prevalent? That's a different question. Perhaps it yes, perhaps no. So I was just going to suggest, I think for our purposes, changing it to prevalent only would give us more information that we need. And I was also going to suggest a follow-up question with all the same categories, where we would ask, how confident would you be to receive meaningful aid or support from the Exeter Police Department when dealing with each of the following problems or issues? So then you've broken it up into, how prevalent are these problems is one question. The second question would be same problems. How confident would you be to get support or aid from the Exeter PD based on, hate crimes, homelessness, et cetera?
Would it be confident or comfortable? Would you use in that word? How confident would you be, or how comfortable would you be? I'm sort of going at it from an approachable standpoint.
I think I was going to say, how confident would you be in getting aid or support?
Okay, yeah, I like that. I mean, it's not about me. What does the committee think? I think that's a good question. Yeah, Alexis is giving a thumbs up. I think I like both those questions.
Numbering, it's messing with me. So, okay, we'll get this figured out. So, repeat the question, please.
I think you delete serious, so it'd be overall, how prevalent do you believe the following problems are in Exeter? Make sure I got that right.
It was confident, correct, Katie?
Well, so
the first question is, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, the first question's here. Sorry, it says how serious prevalent.
Yeah, get rid of the serious.
So 13 would just be prevalent, not serious, and all the choices would be very prevalent, somewhat prevalent.
Right.
Gotcha. So take out confident but prevalent.
In the question above, I think we're talking about, because you've got the second. Yeah. Up here, you take out serious, right?
Right. I was trying to get the text down for the other one.
Oh, so. For the other one. I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right. I'm on the same page. Now, let's go to the next part.
My proposed wording was, how confident would you be to receive meaningful aid or support from the Exeter Police Department?
Aid or support?
Yes. When dealing with each of the following problems, issues in Exeter.
What does the committee think of this question? Just want to make sure. It sounds like a good one. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Not seeing anything. Okay. Everyone good? No, I'm not getting any comments. I think we'll leave that one the way you have it. Is that okay. So does that bring us to the last question, Darius?
This would bring us to, would you like to be confident? Would be the last question. Yes. The numbering's out of order, but yes, this would be the last question.
Okay. So what I'm thinking, I know we're getting, it's a little after 4, so I'm thinking in terms of, in the committee, you can speak to this, the question I'm going to ask just next in terms of logistics. We might want to wait till the next meeting to actually vote on what Bob's put together for us ultimately, as opposed to what we've got right now, just because I think we're probably 80% there, but you can tell me if you'd rather see kind of what the final product will look like before we actually vote on it. I mean, we're almost there, but I think it'd be great to be able to spend one more, maybe, half an hour with Bob or whatever the next meeting going through this. You folks tell me, because I'm only the coordinator of the meeting. I want to do what you think make the most sense for everybody. I don't think we can legitimately vote on it tonight myself, just because it's not final. But it's about as close to final content-wise as we're going to get. But is there appetite for people to actually see what it looks like from Bob before we vote on it? Anyone want to comment?
Yes, I think we kind of have to.
Yeah, I think so too. I just don't want to be the one that said that. Are you still with us, Bob? I know you're out.
I'm still here.
I know you're out there.
Yeah, and I can. I should be able to put this together fairly easily, and I can, in any notes or something, if I'm not able to get your thing put into Google Forms for whatever reason, I'll make note of that and put it in as best I can.
Well, the good news is you may communicate with me, and we meet every other Tuesday. So, but in the interim, certainly you can reach out to me or any one of us in terms of just questions or whatever of how it's all coming together. I don't want you to feel like we're just sending you out there and we don't even talk to you till 2 weeks from now. But we can definitely, it's a work in progress, and that goes to the committee. If you want to email me any questions or anything to do with the survey that we didn't cover in the meeting today that we don't cover. So that by the next time, I think it's worth the wait. I know we've all been on this, but I see a lot of great input. I mean, I really am pleased with what everybody's really putting a lot of thought into this, and I think that's the key to it. Everybody's getting some time in, so that we eventually get data back that we really will be able to do something with. It'll be meaningful.
And if I may, I don't know if now is the right time, but I did have some comments about kind of what to think about, food for thought for, the rollout of this. I don't know if I could just quickly.
Well, yeah, that was part of our agenda as well. That was our next item.
Sure.
We can roll right into that if everybody's okay with that.
If I may make a quick motion, before I make a quick motion to save this as our working final draft, and submit that to Bob for whatever suggestion he comes up with or recommendations in terms of formatting, layout, or other issues, so that it works well for the survey and getting the data back, be able to analyze that. And then we'll have a final vote and approval at our next meeting.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion?
All those in favor, I'll take the roll. It was a long motion. Does everybody understand?
I can summarize it very quickly.
Right. No.
Basically, take what we have as a working final draft, what we see on the screen. I will save this. That will go out and be part of our minutes and everything that goes out. But I will save this and then share this with Bob to have him take a look at this, make any formatting recommendations in terms of how the survey should look and roll up based upon this discussion that we have coming up. And then at our next meeting, we will finalize and approve and hopefully get this out.
And I believe Matt has seconded the motion. All right. Any discussion on the motion?
Can I get a word in?
Yes, Harry, I didn't. You must have joined us later, but please.
Somehow I've been having great trouble getting in this whole thing. And I wanted on the survey relative to possible services. One thing the police might do is to, as they go around, where you see a situation which is unsafe, particularly in relationship to people who are elderly, as I am. For example, if you're at a cross street and you've got a situation on the sidewalk where there are piles of snow that, if you're older, that pile of snow is a real hazard to you. And so if you see a situation when people are patrolling, which is an unsafe situation, and report back to Public Works or whoever to perhaps remedy the situation, that might be a useful service.
I would certainly agree with that.
So, Harry, if I understand what you're saying, I'm going to put something on the screen, and I think this may make sense.
That was the question about in the services that they department might provide.
I think it's one of the ones that they do just out of part and parcel for their name.
Right.
There it goes. Right?
So like an unsafe situation, I think is what he was describing of. Potentially unsafe.
What was you provided an example of ice on sidewalk or something like that?
Well, I mean,
or visibility where you
when
can't.
you're as injured as I am, and your balance is bad, where people are with disabilities or with young children, there can be barriers in there, and I think snow is a particular one. If at the corner where people are trying to get from the sidewalk across the street, and there's a snow barrier there, it's very difficult for people who are elderly and their balance is bad when they have to climb over a mountain, and that's a problem for them. So it would be useful if police, when they saw a situation such as that, which was a barrier to people, to pass this on, public works and so forth, to clear up the situation for those of us who are elderly.
I think we got it. I think Emily Emily would like to make a comment.
Yes.
I'm not sure if Harry's asking for this to be on the survey, or if this is not about survey at all, and Harry is just saying that perhaps this would be a good idea.
Right. I wanted to get to the bottom of that. Did you want that as an actual choice, as an unsafe situation that you want the police to be aware of, or as part of the survey? Because I agree with what Darius is saying and Emily, so I think it's something they would do naturally anyway. And the chief can speak to this. I imagine they get calls like this all the time.
Maybe it's a regular thing which is regularly just done, but at least that's a useful service if that is not done.
Right.
I had one other point, and that was on question 4.
Right, I think you weren't here in the beginning, and the committee can speak to it. I did try to communicate your concerns, but now that you are here, if you want, go right ahead.
And in question 4, they mentioned the word race, and I think the word ethnicity should be substituted for the word race.
And we had a bit of a discussion about that, and I believe if you want to just put the screen up to number 4 again, Darius, just to show Harry what we came up with, because we did have a discussion on number 4.
Yep.
Based on your email that your concerns, I tried to communicate. So here we are.
Yeah, I would eliminate the word race in there.
I guess it can. I don't want to put you on the spot, Emily. Oh, there, good. You raise your hand. I said, it would be great if you wouldn't mind spending a minute giving your position on this.
So when I don't know I've been doing diversity and equity and inclusion work for about 20 years now, and the gold standard is to ask for race and/or ethnicity, and I think for us to go against that and take out the word race, I think we're ignoring both some of the issues here as far as history that we want to address, but we're also going against good DEI practices. So I would strongly be against taking race out. I think it disenfranchises people to take that out of the conversation.
Well, race is also biological nonsense because there's only one race of human beings.
Well, sir, I think
we're
the
all
reality.
The same race.
Well, sir, I don't know that everyone would. While we are all human beings, I don't think that saying that we are all the same is helping. I think understanding our diversity and saying that we appreciate that diversity and that some of us do have different experiences of race in the way that we have been treated by the world. I think that it's important that we agree that we allow people to speak to that.
Well,
go ahead, Matt. Would you like to speak as well? And then I think you're muted, Matt.
I will, for one, dislike using race when talking about ethnicity because they are two different things.
They are, which is why we need to have both.
Race is nonsense, and racists love to relate. Would like to think about various people in different races than us whites. But
sir, many people have been discriminated
out of the Civil War or out of slavery.
Right. Okay, Alexis and then Emily, okay? Alexis?
And I don't know if this is helpful or not, but if we were to leave race out, then we would be ignoring the power issues and the issues that come along with the history of race in our country. So I think especially when we're talking about issues of how the police department relates to people in town, we really have to account for the history of race in the country. And I think capturing that is really important, in my opinion.
Emily and then Matt.
I think that removing race is an act that only emboldens, removing this category from the survey and saying it doesn't exist is only a category that's going to embolden institutional racism. And I think that it's very important we were there. In fact, were it not to be there, I would have some very big reservations about putting my name behind this work.
Matt, you're muted, by the way. There you go. Good.
Sorry about that. So,
okay.
Mr. King, earlier when it was being discussed earlier in the meeting, Tanisha Johnson brought up, this is like a standard question. I think it's on the census. It's on most surveys now, although I understand why you feel you're not comfortable with it. It is generally on most surveys written this way. And as Emily has described, she teaches this to people for sensitivity purposes, and she's comfortable with it. I understand, and this is one reason why this whole committee is here, is to have open dialogue and conversation. But don't be so offended by it being there, because people have the option of checking off, prefer not to answer. And, I can tell you normally when I answer a survey like this, that's kind of how I answer, because I don't want to be judged on my race. But I understand what you're saying, but you also have to understand this is really the norm today on surveys. So don't be offended by it. And I'm sorry if you are offended by it, but you can answer the option, prefer not to answer. So, there's a lot of things out there that would offend all of us in different ways. This one question should not rub you specifically the wrong way when there's an option that we don't have to answer because it's not important to you or I. Do you understand?
I can't see if Harry wants to put his hand up. Darius and then Harry.
So the reason why race and or ethnicity has been asked since the surveys have been done, since the census, and any job application, anything that we do, it is because of the fact that one's race or ethnicity, and it's an identifiable part of an individual, and it's part of their shared experience being a member of that race or ethnicity that will be different from anyone else's, or it could be similar, of anyone else's race or ethnicity or how they choose to identify. And being able to ask a survey respondent something of the race or ethnicity, I think it's important to include that, because that's how they self-identify. May not be how we choose to recognize or say that we want to identify people by their race. And to your point, I respect your views, Harry, that, we're all part of the human race. I get that. But it is very important to know, if I'm responding to a survey, and in light of all the things that have occurred relative to the sensitivity around working with police and their interactions, I think it's important to be able to provide what's been generally used as an acceptable question to ask, their race or ethnicity, and give them the options to not have an answer, but also give them the option to self-identify, so that we can hear from some of the underrepresented race or ethnicity in our own community, where people may choose not to self-identify, but if they're doing the survey, we may be able to gain some insight into what their perceived experiences have been, not perceived, but what their experiences have been relative to the questions that we're asking of the services and how they perceive the police department. So I think it's very important to have the wording of the questionnaire the way it's written. I'm not saying I agree with it 100%, but I do think it's something that's important to ask that way, because we're asking them to self-identify with something that they're familiar with, and something that's been asked on multiple surveys and job applications. And it's not something that's derogatory in any way, shape, or form. But I think if we were to take it out, it would be doing a disservice, because if someone is here and they identify as Native American or American Indian or Alaska Native, that's what they identify with. And that is their shared experience. And that to them may be their race or their ethnicity. So I just think it's important to ask that question.
I don't know anybody among my black friends who consider themselves part of a black race. They may consider themselves in some other way, but I don't think they think of themselves as being part of a race. And I think they think of themselves as being African American or something else. But that's a poison word for most of our black friends, as far as I know. But I don't know. You can do whatever you want, but that's my feeling is that it will be viewed as being racist in and of itself.
I understand and acknowledge your perspective and your point of view, I think that on this question we may disagree collectively, but I think for the greater good, it's important to be able to ask the question that some people may look at their ethnicity as their race, and some people may look at their race as their ethnicity. We can get wrapped around that word, but the bigger point is that we need to ask the question, if they want to self-identify, what they self-identify as race or ethnicity. We could ask the question as, what do you self-identify as, right? And we're still asking what typically are the racial or ethnicity categories that have been used, and these are the groupings that have been standardized across the board. So,
and I think we need to sort of wrap this up. And I don't really want it to become as much of a. I understand everyone's position on this, and I think the committee did a good job in discussing this earlier by coming up with race and or ethnicity. I think we've done a good job with trying to cover it as best we can, and also with the option of if they don't want to respond, if they prefer not to answer, they may do that. It's really, I think it's not necessarily. It's a somewhat, like I said, Tanisha said it better than anybody. She was short and sweet about it early on, and it's certainly not in any way to offend anyone. It's sort of, for lack of a better term, accepted, I'll say in quote, way of being able to help people identify one way or the other. So if we can at least compromise, Harry, with the fact that we do have race and or ethnicity, I think we kind of got there. I felt that the committee, because we had a pretty robust conversation about this earlier this afternoon. And I think I'd like to think the compromise would be that we got them both in there, if that would work for you, so we can continue.
Well, it's still biological nonsense.
And we respect that that is your feeling on the topic.
If I can just say to me, this is the difference between saying all lives matter and Black Lives Matter. There are times that we have to be specific and acknowledge that there are specific times to say, for instance, Black Lives Matter, because the reality of race in this country is such that we have to acknowledge that it has not been one of equal treatment. And part of what we're talking about here as a stakeholders committee, part of the reason we were brought here is because of racial tension and racial injustice in our country. And so to write that out of our survey, I think is an act of violence against people of all races, and especially those who have been marginalized.
Does anyone else have any comments in regard to question 4? Okay.
I think question 4 looks good the way it is. You want to take a roll on question 4?
There was a motion on the table, I thought. It's been a while ago, but I think there was an actual motion, and this was part of the discussion. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
To recap, the motion on the table is to accept this as our working final draft and to share this with Bob Gawacki to any recommendations or updates that he has relative to putting this actually into a Google form so that it works and flows and functions better without changing the content. There may be some wordsmithing here and there, but I don't think it's going to change the questions or content. But our next meeting, we'll come back and finalize and approve that. That is in essence, the motion, which will second it.
Right.
I second it.
So why don't I'll do the roll call vote, and the vote is what we'll put in the minutes, and we can go from there.
And if I may, I'd like to call the question.
Yes, absolutely. I was about to call the roll. Okay, very well. Elliot?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Katie?
Aye.
Harry?
Oh,
Emily? Did I hear Emily?
She's muted.
Oh.
Forgive me, I'm sorry. Aye.
That's okay. Okay, no problem. Alexis?
Aye.
Darius?
Aye.
Tanisha?
Aye.
And the chair says aye.
Did we get Harry?
Did we get
Harry?
the vote? I did call Harry. Did you vote? I thought I heard you say, I'm not sure if it was, did the secretary get Harry's vote?
I thought I heard a no from Harry, but I would like him to affirm that. I can't see his face, so I couldn't.
Right, and I couldn't hear that well either, so that's why I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Harry. Was your vote in favor?
I'm confirming.
What was the vote? Were you in favor or opposed? Were you in favor or opposed to the motion, Harry?
In favor.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you, everyone. Just real quick, we're running a little late. If I could indulge the committee just for at least to talk to Bob a little bit about the areas of how we're going to get the survey out, unless you would prefer that we do this at the next meeting, and the same with the preview of the internal survey. We've gone over an hour and a half, and that was not the intention, but wishes of the committee. If you want to hear a little bit from Bob, or we can move this all to the next meeting, I'm fine with it. Any thoughts, Tanisha?
I'd like to make a motion to move it to the next meeting, just because it's been about an hour and a half, and I think we're all a little tapped out.
No, I agree. Honestly, I don't like to be the one to make the decision, like the committee, to do that, because we have covered a ton of ground here today. I am very grateful for all of the support today, all the contribution, and I think it would actually make sense at the next meeting we can go do the final with Bob. Bob can talk to us about how we can get this out to the world, so to speak. I also have emailed the newspaper, gotten in touch with the reporter over there, letting him know that we're working on this, so that maybe the paper can do something for us as well. We can talk about all that at the next meeting if everyone's agreeable to that, because we covered a lot today, and we can also then talk about the internal survey as well, and the tally, et cetera. There was also no correspondence this week. So unless we have anything else, if I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I had one other thing I just wanted to say, and hopefully we'll put this on next meeting, but Chief Poland, I think you mentioned something about some of the training, the mental health training that you've done with Seacoast Mental Health, that the members of your department have done. And I think that's something that definitely needs some recognition. But I just wanted to either get that on our next meeting, but I just wanted to commend you for working with the Seacoast Mental Health, and I believe it was 40 hours of training that each officer received. Anyway, I just think that's just an amazing thing that needs to be talked about, especially in this all the events that are going on in the world. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Tanisha, is your hand still raised? Just real quick. Okay. And to that point, and I was going to, sort of as a preview, we do have coming up February 9th was the only thing I was going to mention. In our February 9th meeting, we will have Dennis Walker of the Seacoast Mental Health join us to talk to us about the One Mind program that the Exeter Police are the first in the state to sign on to. So that was a preview of coming events. Once we get through this survey, I thought the chief and I have talked about that. And thanks to Darius had mentioned something about a program that, again, want to talk to you was going to be on the agenda for February 9th. So thank you for that preview, Darius. That's great.
I was just excited. So
yeah, no, it is. It should be on the front page of a lot of papers and hasn't gotten there yet. So we're gonna let everybody know about it and get some detail for the committee. So thank you for that.
And I had one other last thing too. I hope that we continue to, as this committee, that we continue to have open, honest discussions, and that we continue to be respectful of one another as we are. But I think it's important for us to have these conversations, because I know that we're having these conversations amongst our friends and so on. So it's important to keep this dialogue up. And I just want to commend each and every one of you for the commitment and your time and effort. I know we've gone long, but this is very important, and this matters. So thank you.
May I say one word before we depart?
Absolutely.
I just want to remind folks, I know I reminded last time that my pronouns are they, them, their, not she, her, hers. That's come up a few times in the last few meetings. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Emily, if I've not gotten that correct, I will work on that to make sure I do, and hold me to the fire, please.
All right. Thank you very much.
I apologize, Emily. I know I did it as well.
It's okay. It's okay. It happened by a few different folks. It's okay. Thank you.
But it's important.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. May I have a motion for adjournment?
A motion for adjournment.
Second.
I second.
All right, I'll call the roll. Elliot Berkowitz.
Aye.
Matt Carboni.